Breaking NFL news. Indianapolis Colts and Cleveland Browns have starting quarterbacks. Daniel Jones and Joe Flacco named the starters respectively, but for how long will they hold off the younger counterparts on their roster? Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers. Thanks for hanging with us. Our core audience, we wouldn't be here without you. And if you are new to the program, welcome and enjoy yourselves. Think about subscribing. And you know what? A lot of our everydayers aren't even subscribed. So let's remember
what's up with that, man?
Before we start the season, pause right now, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. I know you know where to find the program, but it helps us with the algo, and it might help you find some other podcasts that you like that you don't maybe regularly listen to. So subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to this podcast. Hit the thumbs up and all those things. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL. Get $20 off your first ticket purchase. Okay, we got to go to Indy, and the big thing to me with all of this is Daniel Jones named the starter, Joe Flacco named the starter. My question is, for how long, and are these the right moves by these franchises? So it was announced this morning now that Daniel Jones has officially won the job to start the season, and I say start the season over Anthony Richardson to be the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. I thought Anthony Richardson had a nice little game here in the second preseason game. He did have that injury in camp that's never, helpful if you're trying to win a job. And not surprised that maybe Daniel Jones more ready to be the starter early. My question to you, Matt, is it the right move? And how long is Daniel Jones going to be the starting quarterback? Because when it comes to the Browns or the Colts, if you go with the veteran guy, it has to start out great and stay great, or you got to make the change and go back to the young guys.
Yeah.
Is it just a matter of waiting for the young guys to be ready? Will they ever be ready?
Yeah, I think there's some similarities in these moves, and that's the safe route. It's the older route. It's the more cerebral player, more experienced player. It's also boring, and it's also what's the only way we can keep our job situation? You know what I mean? Like, maybe we can squeak out 7 or 8 wins with these guys, run the football a bunch, and go from there. And Indy's obviously, I think, a much better offense than the Browns. They have a good line. They've got a wealth of pass catchers. They've got Jonathan Taylor. We were talking yesterday about teams that could trade a wide receiver. I wonder if the Colts would trade Pittman or Pierce. I mean, they got too many guys and they know what to do with, especially with Warren getting as many targets as he looks like he will. But let's stick with the Colts. I think the Browns are a bigger conversation. It's okay. I mean, I still think they're a better team than the Browns. I still think maybe Daniel Jones can get them to 7 or 8 wins. But the more I've watched him later in life, I was never a big fan. I know you were never a big fan. I didn't understand why the Giants took him as early as they did. I didn't understand why the Giants paid him. But he turns down so many throws. Like Flacco's the opposite. Flacco's chucking it no matter what. Jones leaves a lot of throws on the field. And yes, he runs, but he's become more conservative than ever. And this one, more than the Browns situation, just screams it's not a ringing endorsement for the backup, for Richardson, because I think all ties would go to Richardson, don't you?
And Cleveland, we're talking about, 3rd round rookie and
right.
round rookie and
like
kind of
4th overall pick or whatever.
Right. We'll become a journeyman really with Kenny Pickett as well. So it's not surprising really with Joe Flacco being the guy there. But with Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson, you're really telling us that you got that Anthony Richardson's not the guy.
Screams.
If in the first 3 years of your career you are the number 4 overall pick in the draft and you can't go win a job, then that's it. Like that's it. This is a really big one here with Daniel Jones winning the job over Anthony Richardson. And, there's not a lot of time because you only have those 2 preseason games. There's fewer preseason games now. Anthony Richardson gets nicked up, which is a bigger problem even for him maybe than anything else. And we saw that happen with Trey Lance, where you're a raw player, you need a lot of work, and then you can't get that work. How can you possibly win a job, right? So that's working against Anthony Richardson as well. Could we see Richardson this year? I think there's a very good chance of it.
Yeah, me too.
They have to believe that, and if you are the Colts and you're like, okay, what are we going to do here? We got to save our jobs, right? We got to not be fired at the end of the year, and we got to try to compete. And things could go good with Anthony Richardson, could go amazing by the end of the year. But guess what? The same thing could happen with Anthony Richardson at the end of the year. We're a lot safer starting Daniel Jones right now. He can hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor. He can throw the ball to Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce. And so Anthony Gold makes some plays down the field. He got some speed in that preseason game. A.D. Mitchell, right? And, of course, rookie first-rounder Tyler Warren at tight end, who looks really good. Just get the ball out quickly to those guys, and we believe that we're going to be good enough in the offensive line to run the ball and get the ball out quick. And I don't care if you're passing up big throws because we're going to get the ball into our playmakers' hands, and that's the way we're going to play offense.
Which I get, and I don't think they've said anything on this note, but it wouldn't shock me. Is there a Richardson package? You get him in the game and he throws bombs and runs. Maybe. He is still an athlete out there, even if he's not going to orchestrate the offense as you draw it up. But to your original question, I bet Richardson starts games when it's all said and done over a 17-game stretch, not due to injury. And speaking of injury, it never bothers me. It's just because it's how the league is. You're not good enough. You don't win the job. So be it. Somebody else wins. That's nature. Someone has to eat. You can't feel bad for the antelope because the lions eat too.
Yeah.
So, but I do feel bad for Richardson just because he can't stay on the field. And that's not his fault.
Right. Yeah. That's a tough one. And the other part of this too is I get that Daniel Jones is the veteran. But Anthony Richardson was the guy with the advantage being in this offense last year.
Yeah, right. Jones is a new guy.
Right. And so you would think some of that would cancel itself out. And Richardson still would be like, oh, well, it's like, look, Richardson still, he knows the offense and he's fine. And we can facilitate the offense too. But there's this extra upside there with them. So for them to not see that benefit in starting Anthony Richardson, it is pretty telling about how they feel about Richardson not being someone that they can win enough football games with right now.
And I also think if playing Sanders, Gabriel, or Richardson was truly the best thing for the organization, it's one of those things where job security screws up the league a little bit too. Like if the coaches are just like, I can't have a disaster season or I'm going to get fired. So I'm going to start Flacco. I'm going to start Jones, even if deep down the best thing for the organization would be put Sanders out there from day one or Richardson and sink or swim with them, And some teams, and that's a Steeler thing in me. It's also like the coach always has such stability that I can't imagine a world where, although I lived in Cleveland, where you just have no job security whatsoever. So you don't do the best thing for the organization,
And even more so for the Colts too, which is why it's pretty telling that they've gone with Daniel Jones, is with the Browns, those guys are rookies.
Exactly. And they
benefit you just to let the game slow down for you, watch for a little while before you go in. With Richardson, that period is over. He's done plenty of mental reps. He needs to go. Yeah.
He started NFL games, the rookies haven't,
Here's the other thing with the Indianapolis Colts before we move on to the Browns, and there's a lot more stuff with the Browns. Maybe even more important than QB1, more important than all those playmakers we talked about on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe the most important man in Indy and where this team will end up on that sliding scale of, can they win 10 games? Can they compete for the division? Is it going to be 7 wins, 8 wins, 6 wins? Like, what's this team going to look like? I don't think a lot of people think that this is going to be a juggernaut football team, but Lou Anarumo was pretty much the guy that the Cincinnati Bengals pointed at and said, well, you're the reason we stink. Now, Lou, we're going to pay all our offensive guys. Our defense is going to be better without you. We're going to get a new defensive coordinator. And I think it was an upgrade to go from Gus Bradley, who didn't change with the times quite enough with his defensive scheme in Indy, to go to now you have Lou Anarumo, who I think has been a really good defensive coordinator for a long time. And maybe a refresh for him will help him out. Can that unit help out the offense enough for them to be a 10-win team potentially.
Who knows how it happens? And frankly, with Jones as a quarterback, I don't see the ceiling of this team being very high at all. I think maybe it raises the floor, but it definitely shrinks the ceiling. But I'm with you. I think that's a massive, one of the biggest coordinator upgrades across the league this offseason, because they were the most vanilla D in the league. Cover 3 over and over, like it's the Legion of Boom. And even when the Legion of Boom was awesome, they had like 5 All-Pros and 2 or 3 Hall of Famers,
Pete Carroll was like, we're going to move off of that a little bit, and he's going to use some of those things in Las Vegas now. It's funny because Gus Bradley's now assistant head coach and helping out with the 49ers, so I've heard him speak a couple times this offseason. And it was pretty telling. The first time Gus Bradley spoke, he almost made it seem like he was being helped by the 49ers more than he was coming in to help them. And I was like, oh yeah, I get what you're doing now. Robert Saleh was the guy who used to coach under you. And now you come over here to the 49ers, you're trying to figure out how to resurrect your own career and get some new ideas. That's the vibe I got from Gus Bradley, because things got stale for him. And
good. That sounds like he's the way he should take it.
Right.
He's not going to be more powerful than Saleh or Shanahan, or they're still going to play their defense.
No doubt. By the way, his kid Carter Bradley was a quarterback that I had no idea, because the Niners just signed him. He's their QB3. He might end up on the Niners practice squad. Who knows? Could even make a roster, maybe. So, interesting. There we go. A lot of nepotism in the nepotism football league, right?
Oh yes.
No shortage of that. Let's talk Browns. Joe Flacco named the starter. What about Dylan Gabriel? What about Shador Sanders? And what is even going on with the rest of the roster? A lot to talk about with the Cleveland Browns and more coming up next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Guess what? Brand new holiday, Matt. I don't know if you've heard about August 26th, which is now officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on new NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. You want to take a flyer on that MVP race? You see a dark horse team that you think can go make some waves around the NFL this year. Matt, I think I've really started to get on board with your idea of, look, you got your quarterback in New England. You think you got yourself the correct coaching staff, right? Go trade those 2 first-round picks for Micah Parsons and go battle the Buffalo Bills. Could that be a dark horse team? Division winner, whatever it is, all your dark horses, visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. Joe Flacco, 40 years old quarterback. We got some old QBs still kicking around the NFL. You've seen one every day in Pittsburgh Steelers camp. Joe Flacco has been named the starter, back again as the starter for the Cleveland Browns, and no shortage of bodies there. They're a team that I assume was probably going to keep. I mean, how many?
It sounds like they're going to keep 4. So I read something right before we hit record that rumor has that they're going to keep all 4 quarterbacks, but maybe they're just telling the league that so that they just.
Unless you really do you think they're getting calls about Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders? I don't think they're getting calls about.
Pickett's the only one you get a call about, and I don't think anybody's calling. And plus, he hasn't played. Right.
And you're not gonna cut Gabriel or Sanders. So would you just cut Pickett? Pickett was actually, this one is interesting because Pickett was kind of the guy that you thought had the lead coming in, right? He was the guy that was supposed to be getting the first reps in camp and everything. He had a little bit of an injury and he kind of just disappeared, and Joe Flacco ended up with the job. And you're not going to kick the rookies out yet unless something you really didn't like from them.
No, I think both rookies are making the team for sure. And Flacco's a starter, and Pickett's the only one that could be on the bubble. But I think they're going to keep 4. I mean, at least that's the reports you're reading, and I tend to believe it just because I don't think Pickett's cut worthy. I mean, I he's not as good as I hoped to be in the Steeler uniform, all those good things, but I think he's an okay backup, Yeah,
he's a fine backup, and they spent, frankly, it was a weird move when they made it. They kind of spent a little bit on him. And so, and if you're worried about the rookies being on the football field, then you have to have a veteran backup as well, right? You with Joe Flacco. Or is Joe Flacco just that holdover? And if he gets hurt, you're like, all right, let's go see those rookies. Now we have no choice. And then when it comes to the rookies, would it be Dylan Gabriel or would it be Shador Sanders? Shador Sanders had the really good first preseason game. I think Dylan Gabriel had a nice second preseason game. So that's been a fun little thing to watch. So I don't even know which rookie you would go to. I do know that, and this is what happens. So the old famous quote, Matt, that if you, I don't even know who said it anymore, but if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Do you know who said that originally?
I don't remember, but I'll take Montana and Young,
Right. Yeah.
I'll take Favre and Rodgers,
Here's the thing. And it wasn't the internet age then. That was a pretty, for like old school newspaper stuff, that was a pretty crazy time. You're a Super Bowl contender. You're a big time team. Everyone's watching you, marquee franchise. And there was like a little bit of a QB thing going on. It was written about every single day. Yeah. And now in the internet age, those things are just amplified even more. Saw it again in San Francisco with the Trey Lance thing. And then it's like, what's going on? You're keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. And all of a sudden Brock Purdy comes out of nowhere. And it was just like, you're talking about training camp stats and all this. And it's like, it's really hard because there's so much coverage, so much media coverage, and the fans care about it so much that what happens is you create factions. And we're seeing this with the Browns. It's like, you can't be like, oh man, I like Dylan Gabriel and I like Shador Sanders and rooting for both these guys. No, you have to be either I am hardcore pro Gabriel and anti-Sanders, or I'm pro-Sanders and I'm anti-Gabriel, and we're gonna fight about it. And that's what we're gonna fight about it. Yeah, that's what this kind of thing creates. And you just have to know that if you're an organization. And everyone always thinks, we're a good organization, we're not gonna be caught up in this. It can turn out weird for a lot of people, and you're gonna get asked about it every single day. And so, make sure it's worth it if you're gonna do what the Browns are doing right now. And I still don't quite
self-inflicted by them, though.
Right.
I mean, it's going to create controversy, and then right, and it's self-inflicted. What do you think was going to happen?
Right, especially with the big personality of Shador Sanders. By the way, right. I do want to quote
Mahomes is your starter, and these guys are behind him. Right?
Yeah, I do want to quote Shador Sanders here really quick, talking about Joe Flacco as the old guy, and this was earlier on in camp. Shador did say this about Flacco. Said, "I see Joe do something, and I'm like, all right, bro, I'm going to try that, and then I do it, and it's cool because I'm like." Hey, bro, I did this because I seen you do it. And then he'll be smiling like a proud dad. So there is some sort of, Flacco. And he was talking about it today. And he's like, look, we're all professionals. And sometimes it's awkward because I won the job and they didn't or whatever. But we're all pros. And these guys seem like pros and everything's fine. So that was kind of what Flacco said about it. That's what Shador Sanders said about Flacco being the old guy. And this one makes, I think, a little bit more sense just because, and I do think one of those rookies, who knows, maybe even both of them are going to play for the Browns this year. Oh, yeah. But they are rookies. Let them, Flacco, is Flacco going to lead the NFL in touchdowns like he did when he came in 2023? He was number one in the NFL, 13 touchdowns in his starts between weeks 13 and 17 in 2023 when he came in and saved the Browns season. He was number one in yards. There were a 4-1 record that year. Is he going to be that on fire, Joe Flacco? If so, then he'll keep the job. But if not, whether it's injury, old guy stuff, just them not being that good, which I think could very much be the case, we're going to see the young players. We're going to see the rookies. This one kind of just had to play out that way. Give those rookies a little bit more of a runway.
There's certainly something to be said for getting everyone in the right play, the experience, in and out of the huddle, all those things. And to your point about the touchdowns, Joe is not bashful at all anymore. I mean, he just slings it like crazy. He's going to take hits. He's not going to get out of the way. He's going to throw a lot of picks. He's probably going to throw a lot of touchdowns. Fantasy owners are thrilled that Joe Flacco is the quarterback in a Winston-like manner because Njoku and Judy are going to get the ball, and it's not just going to be handoff, play small ball. Now, while we're talking Browns, I just want to make sure we talk about Isaiah Bond and Judkins. We can get to them in a minute. But here's two huge keys to me to this situation. Not so much who makes the final roster, but in week one, who's the backup that's active? To me, that's going to be really telling. I assume it's Sanders or Gabriel, but I guess it could be Pickett as just a backup, get you out of the game if your quarterback gets hurt. So I think that's really telling. But how about this, BP? I'm not sure any of it's going to matter very far into the playoff or into the season. Look at their first 6 games. They host the Bengals. Clearly, they're going to be a dog in that game, right? Then they go to Baltimore. They're probably a 12-point dog in that game. Then they host the Packers. Definitely a dog. Then they go to Detroit, probably a 12-point dog in that game. Then in London, they play the Vikings, who have already spent a week in Europe because they play the Steelers the week before. So I'm sure they're a big dog against the Vikes, who have been there for 2 weeks. And then they don't even get a bye after their London game. They go at Pittsburgh. Like, that just screams 0-6 to me, and quarterback changes in week 4 or week 6. Or like, I talked about this on my Steelers show because the Steelers are week 6. I'm like, there's no chance Flacco's still starting by week 6. No chance. They'll be 0-5, you know?
There we go. So
that's an awful schedule.
Is it the Dylan Gabriel era that begins, or is it the Shador Sanders era?
That we'll see, right? Yeah.
Week 6, week
this
7.
This will come up again, I'm sure, BP.
No doubt. I think it will. Dylan Gabriel had a really nice game. He was able to showcase his skills out there. And by the way, they signed Tyler Huntley as well. And they have
on the roster, yeah.
So they've got 1,000 quarterbacks. So they're probably going to keep 4 of them. What's
the old adage? If you have 1,000 quarterbacks, you don't have one.
Yeah, the thing is, if you have 15 quarterbacks, you really have none. Dylan Gabriel, though, 13 of 18 passing, 143 yards. They did throw an interception. The Dylan Gabriel thing, too, is that everyone loves him, and he's very leadery. And, you know, he's been the guy even in college. And so that's kind of why they liked him, I think, in the draft. And, you know, clearly they like Shador Sanders enough, but they like Dylan Gabriel's leadership a lot as well. And they saw a guy that they thought could develop into a future starter, but he might be just a really good backup quarterback in the NFL because he has that sort of a vibe to him, to me. And that's kind of what I've always thought about Dylan Gabriel. So really the sliding scale for me is, and I don't think Dylan Gabriel is going to be so good that we're talking about them not even worried about a quarterback in the draft. It's like, okay, Gabriel's like, I think going to be that guy, you know, leader, solid, stable human being in your stable. Maybe he becomes the starting quarterback. Shador Sanders is like, is he off the team? Is he the starter? That's the big sliding scale there. And then, you know, Joe Flacco may be a sacrificial lamb. That's kind of how I view this thing right now. And if one of those rookies doesn't show out, we're talking about a first-round quarterback in the draft again. And then it's like, what were you doing with all this weird stuff in 2025, guys? Because you still got to draft the quarterback again if nobody really, really looks like the guy for them this year.
Because Sanders has such gravity, and it's, Ward, even the first overall pick, didn't get talked about enough because we got to talk about Sanders. So poor Gabriel never gets brought up. But I'm glad you mentioned it because that's exactly how I saw him as a prospect too. But to me, that translates as a 10-year backup in the league that ends up with a lot of money in his pocket, a couple spot starts, reliable. He's just not that toolsy. I mean, he's little and he doesn't have a huge arm or great athleticism. He's okay in all facets, but I look at him as a really good long-term backup, which is fine if you find Sanders hits by chance or next year's first overall pick is there for him too. So I just don't think we talk about Gabriel enough, but I look at him as a backup.
A few more nuggets on the Cleveland Browns. They brought in Isaiah Bond and Quinshon Judkins. Looks like we might have some clear view of what he's going to be for the Cleveland Browns here as a rookie running back, which they really, really need. And
they haven't signed him yet.
They haven't signed him yet. And the Dolphins added a new pass rusher as well. Let's get to those things and finish up this episode of Peacock and Williamson next. Today's episode of P&W is brought to you by Game Time. You ever decided last minute you want to go catch a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day. You suddenly realize, man, I want to be there in the stands. It's exactly where Game Time comes in. For me, it was like, the Giants called up this new prospect. Oh, I got the night off. I'm going to go check out the ball game. It's the easiest way to go grab a last-minute ticket without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, by the way, you can go splurge on food and drinks or merch, maybe get a bigger group to go with you because of the savings. You get up to 60% off last-minute tickets with Game Time. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, the closer it gets to kickoff of a football game, the closer it gets to the opener of a concert or a comedy show going on stage. And they got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes all the worrying out of buying your next tickets. And if you're a sports fan, and I know you are because you're listening to this podcast, just go download Game Time and have that in your pocket at all times. I always check Game Time now before I buy any tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So the Cleveland Browns, that's the quarterback situation. What's going on with the running back situation? They have added a speedy wide receiver in Isaiah Bond. There was some off-field issues with Quinshon Judkins. There was the whole second-round signing thing also that really clouded the Quinshon Judkins thing. Obviously, he's a really talented running back because he went in the top 40 of the NFL draft. Charges have now been dropped, right? Is that the official legal situation?
Yes.
Quinshon Judkins. And
but
so what's going on there? And like,
here's my interpretation of the Judkins thing is we know that there's two different worlds in this sport that we cover in terms of legal stuff. There's the real world, and the charges have been dropped. He is not going to get a fine. He's not going to go to jail. He's not going to get arrested, blah, blah, blah. That has been dropped. But there's also an NFL investigation, and they do their own thing at their own pace. And from what I understand, that's still looming. And the Browns are not going to sign Judkins until that gets resolved. So we made progress in the right direction, but that doesn't mean he didn't do it. I'm not saying he did or didn't, but that doesn't mean that the league won't still see something wrong here and fine him or suspend him, or either way, they have not offered him yet that second round contract. I mean, we know that it's going to be a little less than the guy drafted before him, a little more drafted the guy behind him, but that to me is looming. So that's not done yet. And this Bond thing to me bothers me too. Maybe because it's this organization and a lot of things they do bother me, not because they fired me. I really don't care. Frankly, I would not be talking to you or have as good a life if they didn't. But Isaiah Bond.
That's the important part. I mean,
that's the important part, right?
Never had an opportunity to talk ball with Brian Peacock. Forget being an NFL GM.
Right.
Like that.
Thank the Browns for that. Loss. Right. So Isaiah Bond was pretty much a big time recruit at Bama. They wanted nothing to do with him because of off the field stuff. He goes to Texas, and a year ago was like at the top of all the lists. You know, McShay's too early draft. This guy's a first round pick. He goes to the combine saying, I'm going to break the record. I'm the fastest guy you've ever seen. Not only is he not, but he is still fast and little. He doesn't get drafted, and nobody signs him, all for off-the-field reasons. Nobody wants this guy around. So what do the Browns do basically the day Judkins gets cleared? Well, not by the league, but by everyone else. They give him $3 million guaranteed as an undrafted free agent to be a Cleveland Brown, despite all the off-the-field stuff, which I don't know the extent of, but everyone on the planet says there's lots, and I think you just have to Google it. Like, what are you doing? You know, like you're not one fast receiver away from winning the Super Bowl.
Very strange there. Obviously, and they have Jerry Judy's their wide receiver one.
Yeah.
And had a nice year, and I think he could be a very nice connection with Joe Flacco there if we're playing fantasy football. Cedric Tillman kind of still waiting. There's been reports that maybe, you know, like it's funny because you'll hear a report like, oh, Ced Tillman, he's ready to break out now from someone who watches film. And you know, I think I don't know, one of the really good analysts out there was, you know, really high, Cedric Tillman this year. And then there's another report, maybe he's in the doghouse, you know, and maybe that's part of why Isaiah Bond would be brought in. Deontay Johnson, by the way, another doghouse type of guy, is on the roster as well.
He's lived in the doghouse for he's on 4 teams in a year or something, right?
Yeah, like he got like a multi-story, very nice doghouse, but he spends a lot of time there. It's
how would you like to be the Browns receiver coach right now?
Yeah, so earning his paychecks. Just a weird football team where
who's throwing us the ball, and
who's playing any of the positions. So that's tough. And they obviously try to rework the offensive line, which is a big key to all of it, being able to run or pass the ball. Luckily, they still got Myles Garrett at least on one side of the ball, and he's got Mason Graham next to him, who's been really not reported on a lot just because of all the other stuff going on with the Browns this offseason.
And I think they're going to start the season 0-6. It's an awful stretch that I laid out. They're in a terrible situation for them. And then how hard is the defense going to be trying late in the year and all that kind of stuff? You know, it's just
let's be perfectly honest, though. How much better of a place would the Cleveland Browns been in if they would have just let Matt Williamson run things for the last 20 years?
Sure. I mean, it probably wouldn't be that much worse. I mean, you and I could probably get them to a similar record.
Yeah, right. Especially if it's a 0-win record, right? If it goes that way. But hey, look, they could also just show up and knock off the Bengals in week 1, who I still don't know what's going on defense and don't have Trey Hendrickson again. So
good point. It's probably a good time to get the Bengals. They always lose in week 1 and week 2 too.
That's kind of how about 1-5? They're like, oh,
maybe
we knocked off
1-5,
the Bengals, let's go. And then all of a sudden it's like, but then then it happens. And
then they get steamrolled in Detroit and in Baltimore, and right.
A pretty big signing here. I think we talked a lot about trades yesterday. I think there's still some more trades looming. I think there's still going to be some of these signings happening. It's a big week, right? You have to get ready. The final preseason game, which is really kind of what used to be the last preseason game, the 4th preseason game before teams are not treating it as a true like a tune-up. It's like week 2 was kind of like, we're going to get ready. Okay, now we know who the starters are. Let's see the back half of the roster. We got about 8 or 9 more days, and we're going to have cut downs. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're going to see some trades. We're going to see some moves, and we're going to see some teams realize, okay, well, we need to add a pass rusher like the Miami Dolphins have, and they're signing Matthew Judon. 1 year, I believe it's $6 million contract for the Miami Dolphins. It was a team we haven't talked a lot about, and partially just because I don't know what to think about the Miami Dolphins.
I don't either, but I do think their defensive front has a chance to be quite good. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the Seiler extension, and he's an underrated good player. Kenneth Grant in the first round. They have some other depth at defensive tackle. So I think that the interior is good. And even before the signing, I think you can make the argument that their edge guys were the best position on the team. I mean, Chop Robinson might be a star. He came on really, really strong. Chubb, Phillips, if he can stay healthy, I think is a potential star as well. Did they need Judon? And my immediate thought was, boy, this is an embarrassment of riches for them. If the Bengals trade Hendrickson, might they call the Dolphins for Chubb? Like, I could see Chubb moving now,
Get those questions in for this week's mailbag episode, whatever it is. We want to talk about it because there's a lot going on in the NFL. There's going to be a lot of moving parts this week, and we'll probably no doubt have some big news with either a signing or a trade, and no doubt a lot of little roster moves as teams get ready to cut down after the final preseason game. And then we'll be on to real football. Got some guests talking about fantasy football, getting ready for your drafts before Labor Day as well. So stay tuned for all of it. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Matt and I back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson.